Everything's bigger in Texas. Bruce Bochy's hat size expectations and the battle for the silver boot, which should define the American League West. It's Moss Spring Training Tour number 2, and we're headed out to Surprise, Arizona today for the Texas Rangers. 2 years ago, they were the World Series champions. Last year, a little bit of a rough patch for them. They have overhauled this team. Vegas, Mack, I am really excited about this one. I am excited about the prospects for the Rangers this year in what I believe is a ever-changing American League West.
Absolutely. This is an interesting team. I think some people kind of forget that, last year they were the defending champs, and because they certainly did not play like the defending champs at any point last year. As you're going to find out, I think we have a pretty good team to talk about today.
Yeah, absolutely. They go 78 and 84. They finished 10 and a half games out of first in the American League West. They missed the playoffs. Bruce Bochy, I love the dude. I absolutely love the guy, but I can't wear it up there. I feel like an idiot. Only thing I'm missing is the stickers on my hat at that point. But Bruce Bochy, one of 3 managers in baseball history to win World Series in each league with Sparky Anderson and Tony La Russa. 3rd year, he's been to 5 World Series, 4 wins. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He is a Hall of Famer whenever he decides to hang it up. And first thoughts, lead off on the Rangers, Mack. And we've seen this song and dance from Bruce Bochy before. They won in 23. Do they win in 25? And can they follow it in 27? If you know where I'm going with that, we've seen him do this before. And this team is absolutely loaded. They're over-under win total this year, 85.5 wins. Another team, as like the Braves that we talked about last night, loaded in their lineup top to bottom. There's not an easy out in that lineup. And it starts, as always, with pitching. And Nate Eovaldi comes back to the Rangers. Nasty Nate is a big favorite on this show. And Jacob deGrom, healthy Jacob deGrom. What does that do? What's your overall thoughts on this Rangers pitching staff?
I'm going to start right at the top, baby. Can the Vandy boys bring it back? That's what we're going with. Can the Vandy boys bring it back? I love those 2 guys. As you can tell, I'm excited to talk about them. We're going to get to them just a little bit, but it's all about the Vandy boys for me.
Yeah, and you look at the overall makeup of the staff, the projected rotation: Nate Eovaldi, Jacob deGrom, John Gray, Tyler Mahle, and then it gets a little dicey there. You got Cody Bradford, Kumar Rocker, who we saw a little bit last year, Jack Leiter. And I think this is, and we've talked about this not on the show, in just our group chats with TJ and the rest of our crew. I'm interested to see if, and the Dodgers are a prime example of this with their makeup of their roster, but the Rangers, maybe not the firepower by name, but I'm kind of interested to see if we see some teams this year kind of play around and ditch the starter idea, the opener idea, if you will. And we see more teams kind of go to a modified 6-man rotation. And the Rangers would be one of those teams that would definitely fit that category.
Yeah, I mean, the Red Sox, Breslow talked about it quite a bit at his spring training, his first media session. Number one, and we talked a little bit about this with the Braves with Strider yesterday. The same with the Rangers. DeGrom's not going to start opening day. They've already said that. He's not going to be the opening day starter. They're going to push him back to about the 4th or 5th spot in the rotation, not because he's a 4th or 5th rotation guy. It's because in that 4th or 5th spot, you're going to have built-in off days. And that's what they want. They want to give DeGrom as much time in between starts as he possibly can. Listen, the Rangers didn't do a whole lot in the offseason. Where they did their heavy lifting was last year. That's where they really did their heavy lifting. And when you look at that rotation, yeah, they got Eovaldi back. There's still always questions. You never know about his health, but he's been good the last couple of years. For me, the big guy is John Gray. They went out and spent a lot of money on Gray, and they needed him to be not a number 1. Right off the bat, they knew he didn't need to be a number 1. They had him slot for that number 2, 3 spot, and that's what he needs to be. He needs to get those 25, 30 starts out of him so they can, as I said, those Vandy boys, Leiter and Kumar, let them pitch, follow DeGrom, let them get some time. This could be the best rotation. I think in baseball, Yeah, it could be if all things pan out. It really could be.
Yeah, and maybe some optimism for Rangers fans. You know, we Jacob deGrom 3 starts last year, same with Molly, but focusing in on deGrom, he's getting up there in age. But if you want a comparable sign of hope, if you're a Rangers fan, we talked about this guy yesterday, Chris Sale, won the Cy Young last year. Jacob deGrom, if he can stay healthy in the latter years of his career here, that's the ceiling mark, at least for me, for this Rangers pitching staff. You know, you've got good depth, but I think deGrom takes the Rangers as far as they go. And the Rangers, there's Vegas is high on the Rangers. You know, they're tied for the third best odds in the American League to win the American League at plus 1,000. They're plus 2,500 to win the World Series. Obviously, you got to deal with the National League powerhouses in that scenario. They're plus 225 to win the West. So when you look at this, there's a lot of expectation. And I think the guy we talked about at the top of the show, I think a lot of that comes with Bruce Bochy and his pedigree. He's one of 11 managers to win 2,000 games. Him and Chris Young are in sync with how this team operates and what they're going to do. And, you know, you're dealing with a little bit of an injury issue in the bullpen to start the year with Josh Sborz. He's on the 60-day IL right now. Chris Martin is going to probably be the closer that starts for them. But what do you think on this overhauled bullpen for the Rangers? Gone is Kirby Yates. Gone is Jose Leclerc. Andrew Chafin still not signed. So this bullpen's been overhauled, and that was probably the biggest Achilles heel outside of the injuries for the Rangers last year.
Yeah, they've got a couple of pieces in there. They got Luke Jackson back. They got Barlow back. Listen, I watched Chris Martin the last couple of years with the Red Sox. He's a bulldog of a pitcher. He really is. I don't know that I'd want him as my closer. Not that he can't close, but I don't know that the whole season, that's the guy that I want. I know the other guy that they were looking at is Robert Garcia, lefty that they got in the trade. He's the other one that they're looking at to maybe close things up. But again, they've got some pieces in that bullpen. You never know what they might do with one of these younger guys. I don't know, like, for instance, if they try Leiter or Rocker in a bullpen spot. I mean, I've always thought, I mean, Kumar, when he was in Vandy, I looked at him and said, man, can you imagine him at the end of a game just for one inning having to go? I mean, I know that's probably not even in their thought, because they want those guys to be starters. Those are two dogs right there that can put up some innings if they're good. But you never know. Maybe if you want to keep them on the the major league roster, maybe that might be something that they could do if they need it. The Rangers bullpen still has some question marks for us, but they're going to be, I think, if they can be average, they'll be good.
Yeah, and you know, again, we've seen this in Bruce Bochy's pedigree, and you go back to the run he had with the Giants, you know, and I'm glad you brought up Kumar Rocker, because he's a guy that can definitely fit that role. I think when the Rangers, if they are to make the playoffs and bounce back this year, which I think they will, I think there's a high likelihood that you can see Bochy go to the backside and go, I've got a dude in Kumar Rocker with a live electric arm that's probably going to be impossible to hit late in the game for certain teams. So I think that's something that we definitely have to, and we're a long way from October, obviously. We haven't even gotten to opening day yet, but I think that's definitely something that I would factor in, that Chris Young and Bruce Bochy have discussed, because Rocker is absolutely electric, man. I love watching that guy pitch.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, watching him and Leiter in Vandy, I mean, what a Friday, Saturday, you know, when you had to play Vandy on Friday and Saturday, that was not fun whatsoever. We saw what they did. I mean, you have to remember, like in the tournament, in their tournament run, when they were going, like, Rocker was actually better than Leiter, which is hard to imagine. I mean, he was that good. So, you know, again, these are two young guys. They haven't quite got their feet completely wet in the major leagues yet, but they got the stuff. And that's the thing you always look at. They've got the stuff. Now, can they take that stuff that they have and start getting major league hitters out? That's the big thing that we've got to see. But I mean, if I'm a Texas Rangers fan and I see those two young guys, I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, if they can even be 1% better than last year, if they're 1% better, this Rangers team is not playing for the West. They're not playing for they're playing for a World Series if those guys are 1% better.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you jump into the nuts and bolts of it and you look at the American League West as we pan the camera out, so to speak, obviously the Astros have undergone some changes. Bregman's gone. He's in Boston. The division is changing. The Mariners really didn't do a whole lot of anything to fix their offensive issues. We know how good their pitching is. Obviously, Sacramento is, who knows what the hell is happening there. The Angels, I mean, they've made some moves. They have some players that should make them a little bit better, but we're counting on something there in the Angels that we haven't seen. Health and productivity out of guys that are getting up there in age. So this division is ripe for the taking. And the thing that jumped out when I looked at the odds over the long haul is they're plus 225 to win the West. Them and the Astros, obviously the favorites. To finish up on the pitchers, if you want to go down this road, I'm not going to touch this just because he's coming off the injury, but Jacob deGrom plus 1,100 to win the Cy Young. That puts him about, I believe, fifth, if I remember correctly from looking this morning in the American League. But let's talk about the thing. And obviously, those of you that have followed the show, again, we thank you. Those of you that are watching right now, follow us on all of the social channels at Mike Arana Show, everywhere but Snapchat, because we're not 12 and Snapchat sucks. But when you look at this, and to take it around a dollar dinger's turn, which we had some highs and some lows last year, chicks dig the long ball, and you're going to see a lot of long balls out of this Rangers lineup.
Yeah, here's the one thing that I think of when I think of this Rangers team is bounce back. They need some guys to have bounce back seasons. And again, if they do it, and I mean, I'm going to start with, and unfortunately, we found out today that Adolis Garcia is going to be down for a little bit. But he was a guy that, for whatever reason, something happened in the kind of the midway to the season, kind of right around the All-Star break. I don't know if it was injuries or whatnot, but he did not play well. They need him to bounce back. He's definitely one of those bounce back candidates. I think Marcus Semien as well. Marcus Semien didn't have a great season. He's better than a 237 hitter. They need him to have a bounce back season, I think, as well. And then Evan Carter, again, another youngster in the outfield, did not have a real good year. I noticed that they've put a lot of time already into him in spring training, hitting against left-handed hitters. That was kind of a weakness. I know he had a back injury last year, but they need, those are three guys as I look, they need to bounce back and have good years. Makes this lineup really, really thick.
Yeah, and especially when you get to the depth of it at the bottom side of the lineup, projected, again, these are projections. It doesn't mean that's going to be this way on opening day, but they've got the depth in this lineup where you can bring in a guy like Jake Berger, who they acquired from the Marlins.
Mike, I was going to tell you, Berger is going to make a huge difference.
344 games. This is mind-blowing. 1,233 at-bats, 72 home runs, a 5.4% home run rate. What has he done in the spring? Say what you want about spring stats, whatever. We talked about that yesterday. He's already got 2 homers and 18 at-bats. He's a guy that can hit the long ball, and he's got way more protection in this lineup than he ever had in Miami.
Oh yeah, and from all indication, he's a great guy in the clubhouse. He's already being loved by this Rangers team, and again, that's a place in Texas. That ball has a tendency to jump a little bit in that stadium as well. I think that's good. Put it down. Put a big old asterisk next to this. Vegas Mack says, I think Jake Berger is going to be the surprise signing in the American League of any team. I think he's going to be a huge upgrade for the Rangers.
Yeah, and the other offseason sign when it comes to bats, big bats, if you will, Jock Peterson, probably going to be right in the middle of that order, projected to be in between Langford and Garcia when he's healthy. And, you go Semien, Seager, Langford, Peterson, Garcia, 1 through 5. And then on the backside, you got Josh Jung, Evan Carter, if he can be better, Jake Berger, and Jonah Heim. And then their bench. I mean, you got Josh Smith, Leody Taveras, Kyle Higashioka. We're just going to call him Higgy because that's a mouthful. He had a great year for the Padres from a power standpoint last year. It was kind of surprising. Yep. And Ezekiel Duran. So they have the depth in their offensive lineup to really, really put some numbers up, especially as you mentioned, playing at Globe Life Field.
Yeah, I really, really like this lineup. From top to bottom. I mean, Corey Seager's sneaky good. I mean, um, you know, people don't we don't get to see a lot of the Texas Rangers nationally. I mean, that's not a team that's kind of there, but Corey Seager's good. I mean, he can pick it at shortstop. He's as good defensively as there is, and the dude he's got a great swing. I mean, he's really good. I mean, I love watching him play, and I love Garcia. I mean, I had picked Garcia last year. Remember in the home run derby. I just love that guy. I think he's got a great swing, and of course, your big man Langford. I mean, I know how you feel about Wyatt. He's
chomp, baby.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a team, like you said. They're chicks dig the long ball. Well, this is a place to go because there's going to be a lot of long balls hit with this Rangers team. The one thing, again, what kind of hurt them last year, and we talked a little bit yesterday with the Braves, is like we got to worry about the injuries. This is a team that's kind of been a little snake bitten with the injury bug the last couple of years, and if they can avoid that, I mean, like I said, this is a World Series team, absolutely no doubt.
Yeah, and when you again pan the camera out, there's only 6 teams in baseball that have better odds to get to the World Series or to win the World Series, or to make the playoffs, I should say, than the Rangers, and only 2 of them in the American League, and that's the Yankees and the Orioles. So the odds makers, at least from the Vegas standpoint, and read between the tea leaves however you want to, but again, we remind people that Vegas was not built on winners, it was built on losers. So Vegas is very, very high on this team. Our Vegas, Mac, is very, very high on this team. When you pan out to the American League a little bit, Mac, again, I think both of us are in agreement here. The pitching is the marker for them. That's the ceiling. It's also could be the floor, unfortunately. You're leaning on a lot here. But Chris Young has also shown that he's not afraid to go make moves that improve the overall situation here. So the Rangers are definitely a team I could see at the trade deadline, or even maybe early, depending on what happens with the staff coming out, that could go out and find a good available pitcher to kind of improve the team as they go. Again, if Eovaldi and DeGrom are healthy, we already talked about the depth down to Rocker, Leiter, and Bradford. Young's not going to be afraid to pull the trigger, and he hasn't been since he got there.
And I think that's, like I said at the beginning, they did a lot of their heavy work last year. That's where they did a lot of their heavy work. And listen, he didn't sit back. Young didn't sit back and say, well, I know my bullpen wasn't great last year. I mean, he did go out and pick up guys. I mean, he acknowledged that, listen, the bullpen wasn't good. Now, listen, he didn't go out and get the big names for the bullpen, but he got new players in there. And that's a sign that says, listen, I know we didn't have it. I know it wasn't good last year, but I'm going to do something. It may not be what you want. It may not be what you like, but, we're going to go out and get a Garcia. We're going to get a Barlow. We got Luke Jackson. We're going to try something new. He's established that, listen, it wasn't what it needed to be last year. We're going to try something new. And I think a lot of it, like you said, depends on those starters. I think he's got to sit back and look and say, okay, where are we last year? Are we going to be, a version of our World Series team, or are we going to be last year's version? And I think that kind of plays into the fact that the Rangers didn't do a whole lot. I think he wants to see what this team is going to do and what he's built. Again, I circle the guy, John Gray. I think he's an absolute wild card, if you will, on that pitching staff for them as kind of that bridge between Eovaldi and DeGrom. He's that middle guy. I think he's so key to me for this Rangers team.
Yeah, and there's a good mix on this Rangers team of guys in their 30s, cagey veterans that have been around for a while. And then we've talked about a couple of the guys that are still kind of unproven. Wyatt Langford, for example. I mean, obviously I'm high on him. He's a Gator, but a lot of hype with Langford coming into the season. Had a monster, just absolute monster spring last season. And it wasn't until September that he really caught fire. He's one of those guys that was probably going, can the season go a couple more months? Because it really looked like from just a plate discipline standpoint, late in the season that Langford really figured it out. You mentioned the other guy, Evan Carter. He's another one of those guys that big in the 2023 run, really struggled last year. If Carter and Langford are dialed in, the veterans, they know the long haul of the season. They know how to prep themselves on a day in and day out basis. I think just like we talked about Jacob deGrom as the ceiling, for me, the biggest question for the Rangers is what do they get out of Evan Carter and what do they get out of Wyatt Langford? Because that's what makes this team a live, dangerous team.
It's kind of funny because I said the same thing during football. I got on a lot of teams about these young quarterbacks and how they're not ready. And it's the same with some of these young hitters. Think about, I mean, you remember, right? It didn't matter. I mean, college baseball wasn't what it is now. I mean, we know that, but baseball more than any other sport is a process. You have to do your time basically. And we're talking about young guys that, how many young guys have gone from college playing minimal, I'm talking under 500 at-bats in the minor leagues and then right up to the major leagues. I mean, It's a big step. Yeah, college baseball is a whole lot better, but listen, we all know, go to a college baseball game, go to a Division I college baseball game, and then go to a major league game. There's a difference. And those guys will use every advantage that they possibly can to get you out. It's still a big jump. And that's why when some of these guys have these big years, they do have, in essence, that sophomore slump. Because, listen, right now we're in an age where there's so many numbers in baseball. I mean, baseball's numbers anyway, but there's just so much more. I mean, they know so much about you as a hitter. They probably know more about you as a hitter than you as a hitter. And so that's a huge adjustment. So it does take these guys a little bit more to kind of get going. And so I'm excited about Langford. I think this is going to be a good season for him.
Question. Are the Rangers closer to the Astros at the top of the division, or are they not that far away from the Mariners and Athletics, who are probably going to be third and fourth in the division? I think the Angels are going to be god-awful horrible again. Sorry, TJ, but it is what it is. Where are they to you? Are they closer to the Astros, or are they closer to a couple games better than the A's and the Mariners?
No, they're closer to the Astros in my mind, without a doubt. And I think there's going to be a big separation. I think you may get, Rangers, Astros, and then I think there's going to be quite the separation between those two and the other three. I know Seattle, like you mentioned, the pitching's there, but listen, I look at the Rangers and I'm saying it was a down year for a couple of reasons. This is, like I said, this is a World Series team right here in the Rangers. They're much closer to the Astros.
All right, so our new game to play in spring training, we're going to put the first person on Mike's Man Crush all MLB team for the season, and it's Wyatt Langford. So we're going to keep an eye on those guys throughout the season. And now my next favorite thing to do in our spring training tours, I'm giving Mack $100. You can take any one of these 6 bets. Ready? Over under wins 85.5. AL West champs plus 225, second to Houston. American League champs, they have the third best odds at plus 1,000. Again, Baltimore and New York ahead of them. World Series, they're tied for 10th at plus 2,500. I'm going to throw a couple curveballs at you here. Corey Seager to be MVP at plus 1,600. And Jacob deGrom to win the Cy Young at plus 1,100. I'm giving you $100 of my money. What's the one bet out of those that you're going to place it on? Right on the spot.
I'm going 85 wins. Over.
I think when you look when you look at the whole of the Rangers, I think that's the safe bet there. Obviously, it's hard not to fall in love with, hey, if they win the American League West, 100 at 225, you pull them back $225. The smartest bet for the Rangers, I think, is that over under win total. The catch is the health. Are they going to stay healthy enough? Because if they don't, they probably fall under. if they stay healthy, again, you're talking about the best offense, one of the best offenses in all of baseball.
Yeah, like I said, if they have a couple of those guys bounce back, they're going to be really, really tough to handle. I think if I had to pick one guy, like I said, I think Jake Berger is going to make a huge difference in this team. I read an article just the other day how much his defense has impressed the Texas Rangers, and I think that's another big thing as well. And if he's going to be a bigger benefit as a defense, playing defense as well, that's a great trade for Texas. I mean, he just, like I said, it's another one of these lineups. It seems like these first couple teams that we talked about, Atlanta and then Texas, like these lineups are just stacked. They're just really good.
Yeah, and we'll continue this before we get to our final thoughts on the Rangers here. The Moss Spring Training Tours continue tomorrow. Let's play 2 tomorrow, Mac, in the state of Ohio. Woo! With Cincinnati and Cleveland. The Guardians will be up first. The Reds will be second. On Thursday, it's the Padres, and on Friday, the aforementioned Baltimore Orioles. Again, follow us on all of our social channels at Mike Arana Show, everywhere but Snapchat. Tomorrow, we're going to be joined by a special guest. There's going to be a third window up here tomorrow, and we will play 2 on every Wednesday of our spring training tours. We're going to play 2. Our doubleheader lineup, Reds and Guardians tomorrow, Tigers and Cubs the following Wednesday, Mets and Yankees after that, and then our overall first pitch season preview show. So, to finish it up, Mac, your final expectations and thoughts on the Texas Rangers in 2025.
It's a Texas 2-step, and I'm not much of a dancer, but
no, you are not.
Well, you never know,
I'm gonna get with Mama Mac and confirm this. I need video.
She will agree. World Series champions, you took a couple of steps back. And now 2 more steps. They're going to be right back there in the hunt for that World Series championship. They're again pitching a little bit of a question. Yeah, bullpen a little bit of a question, but put them in Sharpie. Here's my Sharpie.
Uh-oh.
You can get some Rangers colors.
He's going Seth Davis in the March Madness spirit on us.
Yeah, I would Sharpie them in the American League West. I'm gonna stamp that right now. Let's just go for it. They're the West champs.
I believe in Bruce Bochy. I believe in Bruce Bochy. It is what it is. I believe in this Rangers team. I think their lineup is stacked. I think they are good to go for this year. Again, like any team in baseball, there's a lot of ups, downs, maybe this, maybe that. But I believe in this Rangers team. I think the Astros are going through some changes there. They're still a good ball club. You got Christian Walker in there. I mean, we're going to get to the Astros actually a week from today on the 11th. So I think the Rangers win the West. As far as where they go after that, well, I'll let you know on March 26th. For Vegas, Mac, for the rest of our crew, we will be back playing 2 tomorrow in the state of Ohio. Cleveland Guardians first, Cincinnati Reds second, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. Easy for you to say. For Vegas, Mac, and the rest of our crew, we will talk to you tomorrow.